Notice how quietly this issue went away of this GM car, this Cruise hatchback. We bounce around in this country day to day with the news cycle like pinballs. And so I try to slow this process down every now and then and really engage after digging into it. So in addition to what I discussed yesterday, remember the Twitter, make in USA or pay big border tax. This is what he said to GM. And he's talking about cars that GM makes in Mexico, the Cruise hatchback. It's a little tiny car, the Chevy Cruise hatchback, made in Mexico. He's saying, look, you either make those in the United States, or when you make them overseas and import them into the United States, or export them from Mexico to the United States, we're going to slap a big tariff on it, because in the past he has said 35%. So keep in mind, this is a factory that's been in Mexico. So he's getting increasingly aggressive with his AFL-CIO type rhetoric. Now I want to give you some facts. You ready for facts? This is a very, very good piece. It's a balanced piece from David Welch and David Merrill. I'm not going to cherry pick from it. I'm going to read it to you. Why Trump tariffs on Mexican cars probably won't stop job flight. I really want you to listen to this. President-elect Donald Trump says he wants automakers to build cars they sell in the U.S. at home or pay a hefty tax. And by the way, all you folks employed in this country by BMW and Volvo, by Fiat, by Mercedes, by Audi, and so forth, a significant percentage of the auto market. All of you who are employed by foreign car manufacturers with their headquarters overseas, I want you to think about if those countries took the same position, because you'd be out of jobs. Talk about unions. All the dock workers out there, when I drive through Baltimore on the way to New Jersey or on the way to Philadelphia and so forth, or go to Baltimore, they have a huge port there where thousands and thousands of people work. They work on the freighters, they work on the loading docks, they work, all around. I mean, these cars are imported into the United States, and people in the United States are employed around them. Nobody talks about them. Let's go on. Trump says he wants automakers to build cars they sell in the U.S. at home or pay a hefty tax. Yesterday, he criticized GM for building the Chevy Cruise hatchback in Mexico, and during the campaign, he called for a 35% tariff on autos produced south of the Rio Grande. By the way, this isn't just a challenge on Trump. It's a challenge on Bernie Sanders. It's a challenge on the AFL-CIO. It's a challenge with all these people that hold the same position. This doesn't make America great. This isn't America first. This is destructive. After Trump criticized GM, Ford said it would scrap plans to build a $1.6 billion plant in Mexico and build its Focus compact car at an existing facility there. Despite that, U.S. automakers Ford, GM, and Fiat Chrysler are planning to manufacture, listen to this, almost 1 million more cars in Mexico by 2022, according to LMC Automotive, while building 500,000 fewer cars in the United States. Now, why are they doing that? Because they hate America? Because all the people who run these companies hate America? All the people who invest in these companies hate America? Millions and millions of people hate America? How stupid is that? So what's going on? Stick with me. They're not alone. Over the past 5 years, automakers have rushed to build factories in Mexico. The largest car companies have announced at least $22 billion in investments and about 25,000 jobs at new or expanded plants in Mexico by 2019. And that's just the jobs that have been made public. Why is everybody running to Mexico? You may ask. And you may think you have the answer. Because they pay their people next to nothing. That's not the whole answer. It's not even a significant part of the answer. Stay with me. Cheaper labor is one reason Mexico has seen a surge in new car production. While the country's low wages have been a big attraction, one of its key advantages is that it has, you ready? One of its key advantages is that it has trade agreements with 44 countries, giving automakers access to half the global car market tariff-free. You want to hear that again? We can handle this, right? One of its key advantages, that is Mexico's, is that it has trade agreements with 44 countries, giving automakers, that is people who build automobiles in Mexico, automakers access to half the global market tariff-free. The U.S. has similar trade deals with only 20 countries. Mexico has these deals with 44 countries. These 20 countries make up 9% of global car sales, according to the Center for Automotive Research. I have said before, and I want to reiterate this. There was a guy on Fox yesterday that said, build it here, use it here, sell it here. And I said, well, then you are surrendering the world market, not just to our competitors, but to our enemies. You're surrendering the world market to the Chinese. You're surrendering it to the Mexicans. You're surrendering it. You're not a player anymore, let alone all the other problems, because Americans actually want to buy stuff from overseas as well as here at home. Nobody's putting a gun to anybody's head saying, you must buy from Japan. People decide to do it, they do it. I'm explaining how stupid this is. We could be creating hundreds of thousands, millions of more jobs in this country. Not just 800 here and 700 here with threats by a president-elect because he's trying to curry favor with specific unionized industries. This is not healthy for America. The opposite is healthy for America. The answer to Obama, the answer to centralized government socialism, endless regulations and taxes, isn't just to cut taxes and regulations, which is crucial, but it is a complete change in policy. That is, America's open for business. That we want to do business. We're not about redistributing wealth. We're not about crony capitalism. We want to do real business. Create millions and millions of jobs. Create trillions of dollars in wealth. A GM spokesman said most of the Mexican-built Chevy Cruze hatchbacks Trump targeted on Tuesday are exported overseas. Many of the new plants opening in Mexico are producing small SUVs and compact cars such as the Cruze that are more popular with buyers in South America and Europe. That means that for Trump to get jobs flowing back into the U.S., he might be better served seeking the kind of open market that Mexico has created. Exactly. This is so obvious. This is basic stuff. It's pretty ironic that what makes Mexico successful is free trade, said Kirsten Zesnek, an analyst at Carr. You can look at the new investment that is going into Mexico, and while a huge portion is for the U.S., they're selling a lot elsewhere, too. Ford spokesman Carl Henkel said that Ford's decision to build its Focus Compact and Fusion sedan in Mexico, quote, is not solely tied to whichever agreement has the lowest tariffs. He did say the low cost is important, especially in Mexico, but location of the plants relies on multiple factors. To get a better sense of Mexico's advantage, consider a $25,000 mid-size sedan built and shipped in Mexico with one in the United States. Now, automakers can pay Mexican workers a lot less. Total hourly compensation in the motor vehicle manufacturing sector is about 80% less for Mexican workers compared with that for U.S. workers. Considering assembly line time for a typical mid-size car, an automaker can save $600 per vehicle on labor costs. Infrastructure in Mexico lags behind the highway and rail network in the U.S., so it's actually costing automakers $300 more per car in additional shipping expenses to produce the vehicle in Mexico and ship it to Europe, and an extra $900 to ship it to the U.S. So why build in Mexico when the labor costs are subsumed by the transportation and shipping costs? That means even after paying significant less on labor, a car company is walking away with wage savings of only $300 per car, a fraction of what it costs to build and ship in the U.S. The bulk of the savings are tied to Mexico's trade agreements and cheaper parts. Automakers can save $1,500 per car on cheaper Mexican auto parts. Certainly a lot of those savings are tied to the lower wages workers in Mexico are paid. But some of these parts are imported to Mexico tariff-free from countries in Europe and Asia. The point is this. It's like Hong Kong of old. Mexico is copying Hong Kong of old. Deregulating, slashing taxes, eliminating tariffs. So foreign companies want to pour billions and billions of dollars building factories in Mexico rather than America. And in some cases, American companies want to build factories in Mexico, mostly to ship overseas, but also to ship into the United States. So how do you address that? You know what? We'll tax the hell out of the car, which means you will have to pay a third more for a car that's shipped into the United States, or you'll have to buy a car that's manufactured in the United States because Donald Trump and his so-called intellectual think tank have decided that that's good for America. That doesn't make America great again. All that investment that's going into Mexico should come into America. And you don't get it by pounding your fist on a table and threatening people. You get it by sound economic policies. This isn't theoretical. This isn't academic. It's real life. If the corrupt government in Mexico can figure it out, why can't we? Why can't we? We can't. Let's continue if you want to hear more. Some people have tuned out because they want to believe in these myths that they're being told by 23-year-olds with radio shows. Let's continue. Automakers can save $1,500 per car on cheaper Mexican auto parts. A lot of that is due, again, to the lack of tariffs. The same company selling that mid-sized car saves $2,500 per vehicle that it builds in Mexico and ships to Europe because the U.S. doesn't have a trade agreement with the European Union. That's more than it saves in parts and wages once shipping costs are figured in. So what they're saying is the net savings, when everything's considered for an auto company, building a car in Mexico and shipping it, for example, to the European Union is $2,500, and most of that deals with tariffs. So in total, an automaker saves more than $4,000 by building and shipping a car from Mexico to Europe instead of from the United States. If Trump could match those trade deals, he would erase an average $2,500 per vehicle cost advantage over American-made mid-sized cars. So what he ought to do is, rather than appointing protectionists at Commerce, rather than appointing protectionists as a U.S. trade representative, what he should be appointing is the opposite. People who actually understand these markets. People who aren't driven ideologically. Who aren't purists, if you will. People who look at how a third-rate government like Mexico is creating wealth, encouraging investment, creating good, blue-collar, assembly-line jobs because of no tariffs. The cost advantages for Mexico's trade agreements are adding up. Automakers avoided, they write, about $770 million in tariffs in 2014, the most recent year for which data are available. That they would have paid had their exports come from the United States rather than Mexico. And so it goes on. Tariffs are a problem. Protectionism is a problem. Money will flow across borders. Money will flow away from a country or into a country. And unless Donald Trump's intending to threaten every single transaction that involves the importation of products and services into the United States by American companies, or the exportation for that matter, under certain circumstances, and unless every single response is to buckle, this is a fool's errand. And while the surrogates and mouthpieces, while his pom-pom boys and girls and rockettes on radio and TV and elsewhere can cheer the shiny objects, the goal is to create 10, 20, 25 million jobs, not 700 or 800 for the purpose of tweeting.